Welcome to Backyard Cigars. I'm here today with Hamlet's Tabaquero line. So this is Tabaquero by Hamlet under the Rocky Patel lines, and this is Hamlet's Tabaquero Salomon. And we've talked a little bit in the past about the Salomon and some of the history with the Salomon, not really knowing where the Vitola size originated. Seven and by 7 inches and 5/8 by a 58 ring gauge is usually what you're gonna find a Salomon at. Up until a week ago, I thought that the Salomon was the hardest of any Vitola size to roll, but since then I've been well informed that it is not. But it is one of the most difficult Vitola sizes to roll, and you do need a lot of experience to roll this Vitola size. So, keeping that in mind, this is under Rocky Patel, but this is Hamlet Paredes, superstar, rock star, Cuban roller. So, you've heard me talk about Alejandro, Arias, Alex Arias, who recently embarked on a tour in the United States in regards to a new Nicaraguan line and just tours of him rolling, just getting his name out there, uh, getting Americans to know who he is. Well, back in 2015, Hamlet Paredes made the same decision and became employed under Rocky Patel and quickly started working on some blends. Now, this is one of the blends that he was working on, but he cooked this blend up in Florida, and he wasn't actually able to see it through from start to finish because his visas didn't permit him to travel to Nicaragua. So, despite that, and obviously he didn't roll these either, but despite all of that, the cigar has had some success, and so have some of the others that he hasn't rolled and that he's blended, like the 25th Hamlet Paredes 25th year. Now, Hamlet does have an ego, but he's not obnoxious in any way. He's a very nice guy. I've never met him personally, but from people that I have talked to that have met him, they have told me he's a nice guy. Alex told me he's a nice guy and that he's very well respected. I'm not surprised. But Hamlet had to make that decision in 2015 to leave Cuba for good and to come to the United States and begin a new career working with non Cuban tobacco. And this is something that happens to a lot of cigar folks who have been in Cuba for a long time and haven't been exposed to Nicaraguan or all of the different tobaccos that New World cigars are using. They know of them, and obviously, if you know tobacco, you know tobacco. But working towards that balance in the blend when incorporating different tobaccos can be a bit challenging, much more challenging. Some individuals are quick studies and will pick it up right away. Hamlet said he did not like it in the beginning, and he struggled. He struggled, and it became much more difficult. But then, as he got into a groove, he realized that this could be fun. I have so many different tobaccos from so many different regions that I can use that are at my disposal, and obviously falling in love with the Nicaraguan tobacco, like many Cuban rollers and cigar makers eventually do, because they realize that this is the closest thing to Cuba, is something that happens. And as he progressed, he realized that okay, you know, getting to learn more about the different tobaccos and what they bring to the table would ultimately allow him to craft a better cigar. some things that he remarked on in regards to the differences between the non-Cuban cigars to the Cuban cigars. And one of the things he said were Cuban cigars have a tighter draw uh, than non-Cuban cigars. I mean, most of us that smoke a lot of cigars, we kind of know this already because, well, we've smoked Cubans and we know the issues with the draw, which just don't seem to go away. And every time that I have gotten to speak to a Cuban cigar roller, he tells me the same thing. They're not proud of that because the better rollers are not producing these tight draws with plugs in them. That's not what they're doing. But it happens with some of the lesser experienced cigar rollers, and it happens sometimes in the fact that quality control. But look, this isn't about dumping on Cuba's draw problem. This is about talking about Hamlet, Paredes, and what he's embarked on. And what he's embarked on, which has been now, what, about 7 years in the making. And Robbie's back. But let me proceed. This is a Mexican San Andres wrapper. I'm going to tell you about the binder in a minute, but I'm going to tell you that the filler is from Nicaragua. And the binder is a double binder. One of the binders is Mexican San Andres. The other binder is Brazilian Matafina. Why a double binder? Why use a double binder? Some of us, if you're not aware that double binders exist, and they do, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Now, double binders is a thing that really started in Cuba, like most things cigar. And I was talking to a blender about a few months ago, and I was talking to him about double binders, and I said, Jesus, what's the deal with the double binders? I mean, what do they really offer? I can only imagine, my educated guess, that they provide, they enhance or they provide more structure or stability for the structure of the cigar, and I'm thinking maybe a little extra flavor, maybe. And he said, "Look, Jose, yeah, it adds a little bit of flavor, just a little bit, but mostly it's a Cuban traditional thing to do with cigars. A lot of the old timers do it, like um, Don Pepin, Garcia. So he said, look, it does hold the cigar together a lot better, and it does provide that additional support. And it's a tradition going back to Cuba. He said, some of the old timers do it. You don't see a lot of people do it nowadays, he said. But Don Pepin, My Father Cigars, he does it. A couple other guys do it as well. Forget their names right now. I asked him if he ever does it. And he said, my dad used to do it, I think. And it was something that was done. But it isn't something that is going to change the cigar in a way that you might think is going to be dramatic or that it's going to impact the cigar in that way. But it does help. He said it does help. And that's as much as he had to say about it. Obviously, he's not from a Cuban family, but he knows his tobacco. And look, Hamlet wasn't from a cigar family either. Hamlet Paredes talks about the majority of his family members being in the medical field, and he didn't want to go into the medical field, so he wanted to go into the cigar industry. And he tried a couple of different jobs in the cigar industry, and it didn't really work out for him. He didn't want to be a roller initially. He hated the idea of potentially having to sit at a desk for 7-8 hours a day and roll away. But he found himself to be exceptionally good at it. Exceptionally. What's exceptionally good as a roller? What is that? Well, let's talk about it. So, rollers have to go through a course that is usually about 9 months. Then after that, they go through trials and tribulations that could last decades before they can even think of achieving master roller status or even being talked about as one of the best. At the very least, at the very least, in certain instances where you have some rollers that will achieve that in slightly less than a decade, that's considered amazing. So Hamlet did his course, his 9-month course, in 6 months. Excelled so much that he went on to do competitions and win his competitions. And in winning some of those competitions and in the process of entering and just exhibiting his skills, he caught the eye of a lot of legendary famous people in Cuba. And it wasn't a surprise to many when years later he was chosen to be an ambassador for the Cuban government, Habanos SA, and tour the United States and talk all things tobacco. Now he likes to call himself El Maestro de Tabaco, Master of Tobacco. Well, no, he calls himself Master of Tobacco in English. And Maestro de Tabaco would be more like Maestro would be teacher of tobacco. And El Rey de Tabaco would be like king of tobacco, right? So he's all of those things. Actually, he's all of those things, and he wouldn't hesitate to tell you just how confident and sure he is of himself, which he should be. He's accomplished a lot. And so this Salomon is a difficult vitola to roll. I've aged it for 2 years, and so I've not had it fresh, so I wouldn't know what it's like fresh. But at 2 years, I can tell you right now that the cigar, some burn line issues, but other than that, is just smoking beautifully. Well, what do you mean is smoking beautifully? Well, what I mean is that there is balance in this cigar. There is some sweetness to it. There is some subtle pepper. There is a little bit of earthiness to it. There's this soft leather to it. There's some rich cocoa. There have been chocolate notes, and it's been smooth, but it's also been aged 2 years, so it's kind of hard for me to tell you what it would be like fresh, but I think it's a good cigar so far. I've only smoked this much of it so far, but everything I've had so far from Hamlet, Paredes, blends that he's created have been amazing. So I credit him. And look, I think there's more to tell. There will be even more to tell in regards to Hamlet down the road. This is a beginning for him. I mean, he's been here 7 years. It's a beginning. So Hamlet considers himself, and many consider him, one of the best in the world when it comes to rolling. But he's blending cigars now. He's blending them, and he's doing a lot of other things that are going to help him one day go even further than where he is now. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna like pussyfoot or anything like that. This isn't like a grand slam or anything like that, and it isn't knocking me off my feet. It's just a good cigar, and perhaps it's a little smoother because it's been aged a little longer. That's where we're at with this, folks. All I can say is this: I like to see what top of the line individuals, what master craftsmen of their trade, individuals that are uber passionate about what they do, and I like to see what they bring to the table. I like to try the cigars that they roll. I like to try the cigars that they blend. especially in regards to the Cuban individuals that come over here and just get blown away with the complexity and with the variety of all of the different tobaccos that they have at their disposal that they never had before. And when they start comparing the differences in the quality of the leaves, when they either fall in love with Nicaragua or fall in love with the Dominican Republic, whatever it is that they fall in love with, or if they just simply gain some kind of appreciation, I love to see that. I love to hear about that, and I love to celebrate that. Join me on Backyard Cigars. Thank you for watching. Until next time.